What's happening, everyone? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and today we're doing another head-to-head comparison. This time taking a look at the Ford Escape and comparing that with the Ford EcoSport. We're going to be going over dimensions, we're going to go over cargo spacing, we're going to look at what's going on underneath the hood of both of these vehicles. But before we get started, I want to give Marigold Ford a huge shout out and a thank you for giving me access to these two vehicles to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below in order to find their contact details. Now, I also want to do a little bit of a giveaway because at the end of the day, restaurants have been struggling during this pandemic. So what I'm going to do, somewhere in this video, I've hidden a gift card code. Now, if you're the first one to contact me with that code, I'm going to be giving you a $20 gift card to a restaurant that's closest to you. So really excited about that one. But let's dive into it, have a little bit of fun, and see what these two vehicles have to offer. Starting off looking at the exterior of the vehicle. So the EcoSport does have 4 available trim levels, and that's going to dictate some of the basic stylings, the fog lamps, as well as the tire. Because when we look at the S versus the SE and the SES, those are going to have 16-inch tires standard. We do have the option for the 17-inch tires, and then we're in the titanium, so it's going to have a 17-inch tire standard regardless. There are a few different rim choices that are available, again, depending on which package and which trim level of the vehicle you end up going for. But taking a look, it's got an interesting kind of molding for it. We've got a nice headlamp on there, fog lamps as well that are optional, and we've got a little body color molding along the bottom there that stretches across the entire side of the vehicle, both the driver and the passenger side. As we start to move into the back a little bit more, so that black molding really hits the bumper area there. And we do have 2 different drivetrains that are available in the EcoSport. It's either going to be front-wheel drive or a 4-wheel drive, so it's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're looking at. Now the EcoSport, this specific one doesn't have towing available, or towing on it I should say, but towing is available, so we could look at a factory tow option. When we look at towing capacity inside of the EcoSport, the smaller 1-liter engine is going to tow up to 1,400 pounds, while the 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the non-turbo engine will be able to tow up to 2,000 pounds. Looking at some standard technology, so the backup camera is actually going to be standard, and that's going to be across every vehicle in North America as of 2018. We do have a reverse sensing system. Now that sensing system is available on some trim levels, but we will have the blind spot system. So blind spot system lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, and then there also is a base lane keeping and lane centering system. Now, taking a peek at the exterior styling of the vehicle. So first things first, this is the titanium version of the vehicle with the titanium elite package. So it literally pretty much is the most that you can get out of the Escape. So when it comes down to it though, the styling of it for the most part is going to be the same across the entire lineup. From a basics perspective, we're going to have the same headlamps, we've got our fog lamps there as well. Now when it comes down to the actual tires, inside of the Escape Titanium, we're looking at a 19-inch tire. When we look at some of the other trim levels, it's typically going to be a 17-inch that we'll find instead. Now that's one thing to note, because even when it comes down to winter tires, we do need a 17-inch minimum tire as well to use as winters on this thing, whether we're looking at the Escape S or the titanium trim. But nice look when it comes down to it. You also do have a few different rim choices that are available depending on which trim level of the vehicle you look at and which package you go for. Now the vehicle itself went through a pretty big upgrade for the 2020 model year, complete redesign. I think the thing looks really, really nice. If you're looking for more of that boxier style, look at the Bronco Sport, because that takes the older Escape, that like early 2000s where it's very big and boxy. So that's definitely a good option if you're looking for more of a boxier type of a vehicle. But we've got that Escape badging along the top there. We've got the titanium, so the trim level badging along the side, all-wheel drive, and that's how you're gonna know if it's all-wheel versus front wheel, because only all-wheel is gonna show there. When you're in the Escape S, the base, you're going to have no badging along the back there as well. Now this specific one does have the tow package directly from the factory, so just aesthetically it's cut out and it looks really nice. When it comes down to the towing capacity, that's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle you go for. Because if you go for the hybrids, whether that's the regular hybrid or the plug-in, those are going to be able to tow up to 1,500 pound maximum. The 1.5 liter EcoBoost is going to be able to pull up to 2,000 pounds, while the 2 liter turbo that's inside of this vehicle is going to be able to pull up to 3,500 pounds. Now looking at a few things that are standard, backup camera is going to be a North American standard for every vehicle. We do have the reverse sensing system. That's going to be standard on the titanium and the SEL trim level of the vehicle. We also do have, as part of the Ford Co-Pilot 360 package, our blind spot system. Lets us know if anybody's into the blind spot. And we've also got a lane keeping system. So lane keeping, lane centering. Now one other thing that makes the titanium Escape unique is that we also do have that forward sensing system. So lets us know what's going on in front of us. Now one thing to note, it's a forward sensing system, but it's not a 360 camera. So it's really useful for parking. It can actually help us out with parking assist as well, but it's not going to give us a full 360 view. Taking a peek underneath the hood, the EcoSport does have 2 available engine choices. Now there's a 2-liter naturally aspirated, so non-turbo, and then there's a 1-liter turbocharged engine. The 1-liter turbo is going to be able to push out 123 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque, while the 2-liter naturally aspirated, so the one that we're looking at here, is going to push out 166 horsepower and 149 pound-feet of torque. So a little bit of power when it comes down to it. I would definitely, if you're going to be towing anything, would recommend looking at the 2-liter engine as an option instead. But taking a look underneath, we've got the option of easily checking our oil if we need to. We can easily top up a few fluids, and we've got easy access to our battery. Taking a peek underneath the hood of the vehicle. So this is the 2-liter turbocharged engine that you're going to find inside of the Escape lineup. There are actually technically 4 different engine choices that are available. There's the 2.5-liter hybrid, which is going to push out 200 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque. There's the 2.5-liter plug-in hybrid, which is going to push out 221 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque. There's the 1.5-liter EcoBoost, which we will not get inside of the titanium. It's strictly this 2-liter turbo, but the 1.5 is going to push out 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque, while the 2-liter EcoBoost engine that we're staring at here, this is going to push out 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. So plenty of power and lots of options when it comes down to it. Now, when we take a peek under the hood, we've got the option of easily topping up some fluids if we need to. We can easily check our oil, and we've also got easy access to the battery. Taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. So first thing to point out, along the very bottom, we do have our emergency access key, so we can easily gain access to the vehicle if for whatever reason our key fob's not working. Now looking along the very top there, we've got our unlock and our lock button, as well as our panic or our horn alarm button. Now this one obviously does not have the remote start system, and we do have the option of using our cell phone instead. So whether that's an Android or an iPhone, we can use the Ford Pass app in order to be able to remote start and a number of other things. Now that is going to be standard across the entire trim level as well. Oh, I know that getting inside of the trunk of the EcoSport sometimes drives people mad, because where you typically go in order to find the latch, there's no latch. So if we actually take a look on the right side there, we've got a little cutout. So we're just going to put our fingers underneath, we're just going to press, and if you look at that, slides out sideways instead. So a little bit different than what we might be used to. Let's have a little bit of a peek inside. So taking a look at the back here, we do have a privacy shade, and that shade is easily removable. So it's nice so that we can kind of hide things that might be underneath the vehicle. But if we need to remove it, all we're going to do is just hit it a couple times. There we go, as you can see, easily pops out, and we can easily remove that as necessary. Right now, let's take a quick peek at the cargo dimensions. So as you can see there, we don't have a ton of width or depth to this vehicle, but it is nice to know that we've got some options when it comes down to it, because we've got a 60-40 split. So 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we can fold down one or the other if we need to. Now with that second row folded down, take a peek at the difference in the cargo dimensions. So we do have the option of folding it down either one side or the other, but one thing to note is that in the EcoSport as a default, as you can see, we've got a little bit of a lip here, so between the two. But one of the nice things about the EcoSport is that we've got this little tray that's removable, and we can adjust it as necessary. So we can put it down on 2 different levels. We put it down along the top level, lock that into place, and all of a sudden it's a little bit flatter. But the EcoSport also has something that's a little bit unique in how we can fold down that middle row. Let's hop around to the other side to find that out. Now this is typically the way that most people would fold down the seat for the EcoSport, which, don't get me wrong, it is nice, but as you can see there, we've got that little bit of a lip. So in order to actually fold the seat down this way, all we're gonna do is press the button along the top, we press that button and the seat folds down. That's cool, but guess what? The EcoSport's got something a little bit unique. If we move down the seat a little bit, there's a tab, and that's gonna be on the driver and the passenger seat. So as you can see there, tab on both seats. All we're gonna do is take that tab, we're just gonna crank it up, and as you can see there, the seat itself is up. So now if we fold the seat down again, we press that tab, we fold down, all of a sudden, we're a little bit flatter. Now take a look at that difference. So when we go one side to the other, all of a sudden, we've got a little bit of a flatter fold when we fold the seats down this way instead. So we take that tray, we move it back up again, and all of a sudden we've got something that's even flatter. So if you need that little bit of extra space, that's the way we're going to fold the seats down, to give you a couple extra inches, because those couple extra inches can matter. All right, now taking a peek along the back, so not too much to point out. So as you can see there, we do have that adjustable part for the tray. So we've got technically three different sections. We can have it on the top, the middle, or just flat along the bottom, or you can just completely remove it if you need to. But as you can see there, we've got another little tab. So if we crank that tab up, we've got a little inflator kit. So we've got the actual pump, we've got the goop, and then we've also got this little guy. Now that is a spigot that we're going to use if we ever need to use a jerry can in order to fill up the vehicle. Now, unfortunately, we don't have an option of getting a mini spare tire from the factory. I think it was a 2018 model year. It was actually a little tire that would sit in the back of the vehicle. It kind of looked a little bit funky, but unfortunately, we don't have the option for that any longer inside of the EcoSport. Now taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. So first thing to point out, all of the key fobs are going to have this emergency access key, with the exception of the S version of the vehicle. So the base level, it's not going to be push button start. So you're going to have just a regular key instead. When we get into the SE and above, we're going to get this key fob. Now when it comes down to it, we've got our unlock and our lock button, remote start, our trunk release, our horn or our panic alarm button. In order to be able to remote start the vehicle, we're just going to press the lock button once and the circle button twice. Vehicle is now remote started. In order to cancel the remote start, you just press that circle button once. In order to be able to get into the trunk of the vehicle, we've got a couple different options. So on the key fob, we can press this button twice in order to be able to get inside, but we've got a few other options. Now this is the Escape Titanium, which means that we've got a foot-activated powered liftgate. Inside of the SEL, it's going to be power with the optional upgrade to the foot-activated as well. So you just swipe your foot underneath, but just underneath on the handle there also is a button. We can press that in order to lift the liftgate up as well. Let's have a peek inside. All right, so cargo dimensions for the vehicle are going to be showing up, and one of the nice things is that it's a 60-40 split, 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we've got the option of folding those seats down independently if we want to. Now, one of the nice things is that these seats can also be moved forward. So just on the inside, all we can do is slide the seat forward a little bit, and that's going to create a little bit of extra depth, which is nice because with that seat forward, you may not necessarily have to actually fold the seats down. All right, now let's take a peek and see what the dimensions are looking like when we've got that second row folded down as well. So a lot more space, and then as I mentioned, we've got a 60-40 split, so we can fold down one side or the other if we need to create a little bit more space inside of the vehicle. Right now, as we start to move in the back here, so a few things to point out. So as you can see there, we do have our 12-volt power point, so we can plug some things in if we need to. Now underneath, so as you can see there, we do have our mini spare tire, as well as a little bit of extra storage space, and then we've got our spigot if we ever need to fill up using a jerry can. Now, one thing to note about the mini spare tire, in Canada, that's going to be included across all of the trim levels of the vehicle. If you're in the States, unfortunately, it is an add-on option. You do need to order it at the time of getting it from the factory. You could look at something aftermarket as well if you really wanted that mini spare tire. Taking a peek at second row spacing. So I'm 6 feet tall. I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. I've got a teeny little bit of space for my knees and a tiny little bit of room for my feet. So it's not overly spacious. Now up overhead, with me sitting straight up, I have maybe like a quarter of an inch of headspace up overhead. So if you've got some taller kids, they may need to sit inside of the passenger seat, or you might need to look at the Escape as an option instead. But I mean, when it comes down to it, if you've got a smaller family, whatever the case may be, young kids, they'll absolutely be able to sit back here comfortably. Or if you've got a fur baby, absolutely we'll be able to get away with getting them to the back seat instead. All right, so starting off, we've got our handle, we've got our window button, and we've also got a little bottle holder there. Now, as we start to move up overhead, we've got a few clips. That's going to be the same for the driver and the passenger side. Moving down, we've got a pocket for behind the passenger seat, no pocket on the driver, and that's going to be the same for every trim level of the vehicle. And then moving down, we've got a 150 watt inverter as well, so your typical wall outlet. So if you need to plug some things in, we can absolutely do that. Now, there are some limitations, so you're not going to be plugging in a mini fridge and things like that to the back of the vehicle. And we've got a 60-40 split for our back seat, so 60% driver, 40% passenger. So we can fold down each seat independently if we want to. And then along the very top, we've also got a little tab. We can pull that down in order to reveal our cup holders. Now, taking a look at second row spacing, I'm 6 feet tall. I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall, and I still have a nice amount of knee space and a good amount of foot space. Now, up overhead, this thing does have that twin panel sunroof, and even with that roof, I've got maybe about 1.5 inches worth of headspace up overhead. So if you've got people that are a little bit taller, you can definitely get them sitting in that other seat instead. Now, one of the nice things about the seats inside of the Escape, the entire Escape trim level lineup, is that we can move the seat forwards and backwards if we'd like to. So there's a little lever in between our legs, and that's going to be the same for the driver and the passenger side. And one of the nice things is that there is another lever along the side as well, the side of the seat. We can crank that in order to move the seat backwards a little bit, so we can recline it a little bit. When I recline back, I'm closer to about 2 inches of headspace. So we do have a little bit more space when we fully recline those seats. Taking a peek along the inside, we do have a pocket along the passenger side, nothing along the driver, and that's going to be the same for all trim levels of the vehicle. We can figure out what's going on with our fan, and we've also got a few USB ports in the back there, so our USB and our USB-C. Now, one thing to note is that we do not have that 150 watts of that regular wall outlet in the back of the Escape anymore. Now as we start to look back in the seats, so we do have a nice look to the actual seat itself, and we do have a few cup holders in the back there, so we can pull that down, click it in order to lock it back into place. Now as we take a look along the actual seat itself, I should say the door itself, basics, so we've got our handle, we've got our window control, and a little bit of storage space along the actual door. As we move up, we've got a handle, and then we've also got an interior light. Taking a peek along the driver's side door, so we do have our handle there, which does have intelligent access. So we button press in order to be able to lock or unlock the doors. Moving on the inside, we've got our unlock and our lock button. We've got our side view mirror adjusting, our window adjusting buttons, and we've got a little storage space along the driver's side door as well. Now moving up just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got a series of different buttons there. So this is going to be for our fog lamps, figure out what's going on with our running lamps. I honestly just recommend keeping it in the auto setting. And then our dimmer switches for our instrument cluster. Adjusting the driver's seat inside of the vehicle might be a power process, might be a manual process, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle you're looking at. We're in the titanium trim level, which means we've got a fully power seat for the driver's side and then a partial power seat for the passenger side. But adjusting the driver's side seat along our left side, we've got a series of different buttons there. Very first one is actually a little toggle. So we can move that forwards, backwards, and that's going to be for our lumbar support. Next one over is for the actual seat. We can bring the seat forwards, backwards, we can go up and down with it. And then we've also got one for a backrest, so we can move that one backwards or forwards as necessary. Now, one thing to note, I'm 6 feet tall, so with the seat all the way down and all the way back as far as it'll go, like I've probably got like 4 inches of headspace and then plenty of space for my feet as well. So if you're a little bit taller, you could probably comfortably sit inside of this thing. The big thing is going to be what's happening with the folks in behind you, because if you've got the seat all the way back, the people aren't necessarily going to be able to comfortably get in the back there. Looking at the steering wheel, it is going to be a manual adjust across the entire lineup. So just along the left side by our left knee, we've got a little lever there. Just going to crank that down, and it's telescopic, so we can go in and out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, we're just going to take that, click it in order to lock it back into place. All right, next up, let's take a peek at the steering wheel. So this is going to be a basic look at the steering wheel, instrument cluster, as well as that media screen. If you're looking for the more advanced walk around, check down in the description below, because I put together a comprehensive walk around video. But starting off looking at some of the basics, this is going to be the directional keypad in order to move between what's going on with that cluster screen. So we can go up and down between our trip counter, different views and things like that. We can jump into a more advanced menu, back out from there. Moving down, we've also got our cruise control, so it's just basic cruise. We can turn that on or off, set, etc. So increase, decrease, we can set and cancel, etc. Moving off to the right-hand side, so we can change between songs or radio stations. We can answer or hang up on a phone call. We can increase or decrease the volume, and then we've also got our voice command prompt. So with that prompt, we can do things like change the radio station. We can navigate, make phone calls, and things like that using our voice. So it's really, really great from that perspective. We've got a lot of flexibility when it comes down to it. Now, as we start to move forwards, as you can see there, our left stick, we can flick our high beams on or off. Now, in order to permanently lock them out, we cannot be inside of the auto mode. We've got to be on the permanent on mode in order to be able to lock those things out permanently. Along the right side, we've got our rain sensing wipers, so flick on how sensitive it is to the rain hitting the windshield. Along the very end of the right stick, we can figure out what's going on with our reverse wiper. We're going to pull in towards us for the front wiper, push away for the rear. Where push button starts in some of the trim levels of the vehicle. Moving forward, now this media screen, so this Sync 3 media screen, has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay capabilities. Now it's not available on the base S model, but it is available on the SE, standard on the SES, and in the Titanium as well. And we do have factory navigation there also. A lot of flexibility, and there's a lot of things we can do with this thing. We do have flexibility to add in Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. We're just going to be connected through USB in order to do that. Very straightforward, but it's a really great process as well, because we do have factory navigation, but if you prefer to use Waze, Google Maps, things like that, we've got that flexibility to use it through that middle screen. Moving down, we've got our volume rocker, so we, oh yeah. So good. Audio test there, incredible. Now this is the Titanium, so we do have an upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system, but it sounds great. We can toggle the audio on or off. We can tune this way. We can tune by doing a direct tune, or we can just tune using our voice instead. Change between songs, radio stations, play, pause. We've got our audio settings, and we can also kill off power to that screen if we really don't like it. Back up, we've got our 4-way blinkers, basics for our climate control. We can turn on our heated seats. We've got the heated steering wheel. We've got our auto start stop, so that one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if we're stopped for an extended period of time, and we can turn our traction control on or off. Along the other side, we've got a couple of USB ports, as well as a 12 volt port along the bottom. Moving down, we've got our shifter knob with our park reverse neutral drive and our sport mode. Sport mode means that it's going to hang onto the gears a teeny little bit longer. And then we can also switch out gears if we want to along the very top there. Moving down, we do have our parking brake, so we can easily take that on or off as necessary. We've got our cup holders along the bottom there. And as you can see, we do also have our lights, so our ambient lighting. Now we can change this color inside of the EcoSport. All right, moving down a little bit more, we do have a removable tray there, so pop that out for a little bit of storage space. Click it, log it back into place. As we start to move up, we've got our auto-dimming rear view mirror. We can figure out what's going on with our cabin lights. Now this one, because we're in the titanium, does have this little sunroof, so similar size to what's going on in the Bronco Sport. We can open and close it as necessary there. Now this is available inside of some of the trim levels of the vehicle, not as going to be as standard in some of the other ones. Moving up, we've got our sunglasses holder. We've got our vanity mirror as well, no lights in the mirror, and then we've also got our little pocket holder. We can click this thing out as well if we want to, but we cannot extend it, so it's locked into place there. We can also click it in order to lock it in. All right, taking a peek along the driver's side door, so we can easily lock and unlock the vehicle there. Along the side, we also do have a series of numbers we can just kind of make out, but that's going to give us the ability to get inside of the vehicle without the actual fob on us. Now as we actually move inside, so this is the titanium trim level of the vehicle, so we do have a few seat memory buttons. We've got our lock and our unlock button. We've got some basics for our side view mirror controls, and we can also adjust our windows. As we start to move down a little bit, because we're in the titanium trim, we do have a Bang & Olufsen sound system, and then we've got a little bit of storage along that driver's side door as well. As we start to move inside, so just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we can open our liftgate, so open and close. We've got our fog lamps. We can figure out what's going on with our running lamps. Adjusting the driver's seat inside of the vehicle might be power, might be manual, depending on which trim level of the vehicle you're looking at. We're looking at the titanium trim, which means we've got a power adjustable driver's seat, power adjustable passenger seat as well. So in order to be able to adjust, there's a series of toggles along the left-hand side. We can move the seat forwards, backwards, up and down. There's another one in behind, and that's going to be for the backrest, so we can go backwards or forwards with that. And then there's another circular one, and that's going to be for lumbar support, so we can give ourselves a little bit more stability in our lower back. Adjusting the steering wheel inside of the entire trim level lineup is going to be a manual process. So just by our left knee, we've got a little lever there. We're just going to crank that down, and it's telescopic, so we can go in and out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, you're just going to click in order to lock it back into place. Next up, let's take a peek at the steering wheel. So this is going to be a quick walk around looking at all the buttons and all the different options there, as well as that sync screen. If you're looking for a more in-depth walk around of not only the buttons in the cluster, but also that sync 3 screen, check down in the description below because I've put together a comprehensive walk around video. But starting looking at some of the basics, we've got our adaptive cruise control system. Now that's going to be standard on some trim levels of the vehicle. It's also available optionally in a certain package, but we've got our distance indicator, so how close or how far are we away from the vehicle in front of us. We can turn our lane centering system on or off. We can toggle the whole system on or off. We can set and resume if we'd like to. We can also adjust what's going on with our audio, so increase or decrease the audio there. We can mute out. Along to the right side, our voice command prompt. We can change radio stations, answer or hang up on a phone call. We can navigate between our instrument cluster by going up and down. We've got a basic menu, and we can pull back as well. The vehicle does also have a heads-up display. Unfortunately, can't really make it out, but it is there, and it shows your speed. If your lane centering system was there, you've got a few different options on what's actually showing inside of this thing. So it's kind of neat, but it is available there. Now, you do have to be inside of certain packages, the Titanium Elite package, in order to be able to get that heads-up display as well. Now, as we start to move off to the side, so this is the Sync 3 media screen. Now, a couple things about the screen itself. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay support. So if your vehicle does not have the factory navigation, don't worry about it because we can use Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze directly through that middle screen when we're connected through CarPlay or Android Auto. A lot of great features when it comes down to it. We do have factory navigation there. We've got some basic settings, so driver assistance settings, so things like our blind spot system, we've got a lane keeping system, our cruise control, and a number of other things. Moving back, that's going to be the basics there. We do have quite a few different options, so what's going on with our display. We've got a more advanced voice control there as well. Moving down, volume rocker, tuning rocker, change between songs or stations. We've got our hotkey for our sound settings. Moving down, we do have dual zone climate control, and we've got our more advanced climate settings there. We do have our heated seats as well as the heated steering wheel. Inside of the Escape, unfortunately, we do not have the option for cooled seats no matter what. We do have heated front row seats though that are available as an option there. Depending on the trim level, we're in the titanium, which means that they are standard. Moving down a little bit more, where there is a wireless charging pad there. Now the charging pad itself is standard inside of some trim levels of the vehicle. When we're in the Titanium Elite package, it will be standard there as well. But moving on the inside, as you can see, we've got a few USB plugs, so our USB and our USB-C, as well as a traditional 12-volt port as well. Now, as we start to move down a little bit, we've got our shifter. So this shifter is slightly different than the old school shifters, the actual shifters you might be used to. So this dial pad. So we can change between our different gears there if we'd like to, very, very simply, park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then our low gear. Now, one of the nice things though about this shifter is that even if we're in drive, if we go to turn the car off, it automatically is going to flip us back into park. So it's a really, really neat system from that perspective. We don't need to worry about actually flipping ourselves back into park every time. And that's the same if we're in reverse, etc. As we start to move down, we've got our basic cup holder there. We've got our parking brake, our auto hold setting, which the auto hold setting is a neat one because with the setting on, if we put the vehicle in drive for a second, we can take our foot off the brake and we're not going to move whatsoever. So that setting is literally just going to hold us in place. So useful if you come up to a stop and you want to stretch your legs out for a second. Moving down a bit more, we've got our different drive modes. So looking along the screen itself, so we do have our normal, eco, sport, slippery, snow, sand, as well as back to our normal mode again. So a ton of different options there. And each mode is going to do something slightly different. Like when you're in the slippery mode, it's going to adjust what's going on with your traction control and stability control in order to give you better handling in the snow. Moving over, we do have our park assist button, and that's going to be standard in the titanium trim level of the vehicle. We've got our auto hold setting, so that's the one that's potentially going to go power to the engine if we're stopped for an extended period of time. And then we've also got that reverse sensing system, so that beeping that we get as we back up, if that drives you nuts, you've got the option of disabling it if you want to. Moving up, as you can see there, we do have a little cubby there, so a little bit of storage, nothing too fancy there. We do have a pen holder along there and along the top. Now, as we start to move up, we do have an auto-dimming rear view mirror. Our cabin control lights. Now this is the titanium. We do have that panoramic roof. So we've got our basics for our roof control. So our shade as well as the actual roof. Along the top there, we do have our sunglasses holder. We've got our home link so we can program in a garage door opener if we've got one at home. We've got our business card holder. Pushing this down, we do have our vanity mirror with the lights. We can pop this out and we can extend it a tiny little bit if we need to block a little bit more sun. Click it in order to lock it back into place. Well, folks, that was a look at the Escape versus the EcoSport. What did you think? I kind of like the Escape a teeny little bit more, a lot more flexibility and options, but it's going to come down to what do you need. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Think about sharing it with your social networks, and until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.